What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ICNVDE Drives Edition. Today I'm going to have a quick conversation with you about, did GM just corner the market with the new Corvette E-ray? One thing I can sit there and say is, with the release of this vehicle, it has now kind of brought the hybrid performance car to the mainstream eye, because many people are making comments as if this is the first one. So what that means to me is we need to talk about this, because GM didn't make the first hybrid sports car, but they did make it where it was affordable for the average Joe to own one. Let's talk about it.
I'm on it, I just wanna be iconic. Sipping on a gin and tonic, got me going off when I'm on this topic, yeah. If I ever play, I want it, you know that I'm always honest. Stay away from those who are toxic, keep them out your face, no way, you don't want it, yeah.
So let's get right into this conversation. When I think about hybrid sports cars, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind, which may not even come to yours, is the BMW i8. Now, many people are going to criticize this car, but for me, it was the first real true emphasis of a supercar format, a sportier look of any type of car being mixed with a hybrid combination. Now, I feel like the purpose of the BMW i8 was quite different in its focus, because it really wasn't trying to put out supercar performance. But what many people criticize about the i8, because they say it wasn't fast enough, when the i8 actually came out, I feel like it was more an evolution of a market that wasn't willing to pay that much money for it. And what do I mean? Well, the BMW i8 had over 360 horses combined. This was created by a 3-cylinder engine along with 3 electric motors. Now, when you look back at the cars of its day, when it actually first dropped on the scene, you were still getting 400 horsepower. So, for what this car was actually coming up against, it was actually putting out a nice horsepower output for what was in the market at that point in time. But what really turned it all around, the evolution of superchargers and turbochargers into the economy, and all of a sudden these numbers started getting boosted and performance started to take off quickly. But I don't want to get sidetracked on that conversation, because this is not about the BMW i8. Let's talk about real supercars with hybrid technology. So the Corvette C8 E-ray, which has now been introduced to the world a few weeks back, is actually a very stylish looking car. It's also a Corvette, and Corvette is probably the biggest sports car brand known in the country, or as some people say, supercar. It all depends on how you're going to categorize it, and we're not going to get into that conversation today. We can save that for another video. But when you look at the Corvette E-ray, it mixes performance with premium options that you don't typically find on supercars. That in itself makes it an intriguing option. But when you look at real true supercars with hybrid formats, and the reason why I said this isn't something new, Ferrari has the SF90, the Stradale. And for those you don't know, that is also a hybrid sports car. And you're looking at a Ferrari that has a V8 in it mixed with electric motors that is pushing out a combined horsepower of 986 horsepower. But the one thing about the Ferrari is it's actually a plug-in hybrid. So you can plug it in and get a solid 15 miles of EV range from a hybrid electric motor that's pushing out about 217 horsepower. The V8 engine alone gives you 769 horsepower, and the car itself has been advertised to do 0 to 60 between 2.3 seconds and 2.5, but there have been several people that have actually done 0 to 60 in this car pushing close to 2 seconds meaning like 2.0 and 2.1. Look it up on your own. But when I look at the Ferrari SF90, the first thing that is a big turnoff is, well, I can't say a turnoff, but what makes it something that's probably under the E-ray buyer's radar is the car starts out over $500,000. It starts over $500,000. Yes, it's a supercar, but it also seems pretty likely not to be obtainable by many people on the market. So why would you even be aware or know of its existence when you're not in the market for a $500,000 car? But if you're not in the market for the $500,000 car, guess what? Ferrari still is there for you. They also have another hybrid on the market that is a supercar, and it is the Ferrari 296 GTB. Now, this one will save you almost $200,000. And I did say save you almost $200,000. This car starts right around 320 grand. And the GTB only has 819 horsepower. So if you ask me, the GTB is actually more of a bargain than you may think, because you lose about 170 more horsepower. But let's be real. If 819 horsepower isn't enough for you, I think you need to be looking over $500,000 for a car. Now, the 296 GTB is actually based off a 3-liter V6. Now, I was asked to have a conversation about this, talking with the E-ray, and I will get into that in another video about the changing dynamics of hybrids entering the market and the new future of the supercar. I do have another video coming, so stay tuned. And while we're talking about staying tuned, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, especially if you like this content so far. Hit that like button, subscribe, join the ICNVDE Driver Edition community. We talk about interesting conversations, as you can see, lots of informative videos, and we have fun on this channel as well. So if you're looking for a way to pass the time with something interesting and yet sometimes quite humorous, go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell, and get the notification for the next video that's coming up. And like I mentioned, there's more content like this coming your way. So like I was stating, it appears the future of the supercar is the engines are getting smaller and we're going to get more hybrid performance to reach the excess horsepower or the extreme performance that we're looking for from these cars that we are losing from the big engines of the past. So when we look at this Ferrari 296 GTB, like I stated before, it is a 3-liter V6 twin turbo engine that's pushed out 684 horsepower. Now the car also pushed out 546 foot-pounds of torque, but when you add the plug-in hybrid motor to the equation, you get an additional 164 horsepower to get you to a combined total of 819 horses. And remember, I did say this was the bargain Ferrari. So unlike the SF90, you don't get quite as much EV range. You're only getting 10 miles in this car, so you lose 5 miles from the SF90 along with the horsepower. But does any of that really matter when you're getting a combined total of 47 miles per gallon electric from the vehicle? I think not. So again, the bargain Ferrari hybrid is the 296 GTB, but I just think there is still more to come from the brand in the future. Now, let's go back to the car many people felt the Corvette E-ray set out to go after. Let's be real, not even go after, to destroy and to show the true engineering that can be done by the American manufacturing company known as Chevy, the Acura NSX, or around the world known as the Honda NSX, which has a twin turbo V6 that pushes out about 500 horsepower. Then you add on an electric motor that gives you an additional 83 horsepower for a combined total of 573 horsepower. This mid-engine supercar, and yes, it is a supercar, combines the most luxury features and options along with a sportier presence. Now, unlike the other vehicles we just talked about before, this is actually probably the most affordable hybrid car that we've mentioned out of all the other cars above. But the one thing about the Acura NSX, it seemed like it's the baby of the bunch. The horsepower is not that impressive when you look at 650 horses from the E-ray, 819 from the Ferrari 296 GTB, and a whopping 986 from the SF90. It just seems like this is the subpar option, but it's also one of the cheapest options and probably the closest that you can look to spend money on when it comes to the C8 E-ray. So is this really the true alternative to the Corvette E-ray? I think for many people it will be financially, but it's not. I really don't want to get too much into the Acura NSX because it's already been bashed and criticized, praised a little bit so many times throughout the years that I'm sure you already have some form of opinion. And the only thing I can sit there and say to you is, if you're looking for a nice alternative that's not going to break the bank, this may be your option, but just know it has some surprising speed and acceleration to the car, but it's not going to get you a lot of high-end performance, but you will still have the stunning looks of a supercar and the performance of a supercar. But there are other cars out there like a 911 Carrera S or the base Audi R8 with 550 horses that just pretty much make this car seem like it's out of its league. But the true competitor to the Corvette C8 E-ray, when you look at performance, is McLaren's new Artura. Now, price-wise, it starts about $237,000, which is more than $100,000 over the MSRP starting price of the C8 E-ray. But when you look at horsepower and torque, they're very close. The new Artura gives you 671 horsepower and 531 pound-feet of torque. But this is accomplished from a V6 twin-turbo engine that puts out 577 horsepower and receives an additional 94 horsepower bump from the electric motor. When you look to compare 0 to 60 times, the Artura does it in 2.6 seconds and the E-ray does it in 2.5. And unless you're drag strip racing, that 2.5 seconds won't really be that noticeable. But we do know that the Artura can drive around town in full EV mode for at least 11 miles, which is still 1 mile more than the 296 GTB, which is over $100,000 more in price than the actual Artura. But let's be real, you're getting a lot more horsepower with the 296 as well. So overall, I think when you're looking on the market, the Artura may be the best bargain if you want to take that risk with McLaren. Now, my only issue with the Artura is it is a McLaren. And I'm not going to go into the whole reliability aspect of it. I'm just going to sit there and say, out of all the hybrids we looked at, the interior of the Artura is where I feel like the car falls short. McLaren, to me, always treats their vehicle as if the interior is an afterthought. Like that's not part of the primary purpose of the car. But there are people that actually like it, so if you're one of those people, more power to you. But overall, these are the hybrid cars that are on the market. So when the question comes out, or when people ask me, did GM just corner the market? Honestly, they may have. Because most owners or most people who have actually been looking into the supercar hybrid platform market, they've been looking at these cars already. And when you come out and you can get a hybrid car that competes or is very close to the performance level of these vehicles for $200,000 to $300,000 cheaper, you definitely have to pay attention. Now, the real concern comes out to be, will this car be as hard to get as the C8 Z06? A few locations have started opening up their list for the Corvette C8 E-ray, and there were some lines forming, and from what I can tell, a few locations did get 50 to 60 people on a list. But when you look at what took place with the C8Z06, the E-ray may be an actual car that many consumers can get their hands on if they're willing to play that hefty six-figure tag that most Corvette owners aren't used to paying. But who knows? Either way, well, this is my information on that GM just coined the market. I would say for design, performance, no. But when you look at pricing and availability and functionality, I would say yes. So, ICNV Driver's Edition. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, join the ICNV Driver's Edition community. If this is your first time stopping by, just know I have fun on the channel. We talk about a lot of interesting conversation. Most are from conversations brought up or sent to me by my community members through my social media platforms. So if there's something you would like for me to talk about, either leave a comment below or don't be afraid to hit me up on one of my social media sites, and I will get back to you one way or another. But as always, until the next upload, stay safe, stay blessed, and I will see you in these streets. Peace.